Well, now, here we go, good friends, good friendly friends. This is the one, my hair out of there. This is the one we're going to talk about how you really beat the system, the mechanics of it. I'm not one of these esoteric theorists. They're going to give you a lot of stuff up in the clouds. Gee, we apply this to the hypotenuse of the alleles. No, I speak plain language. I tell you what to do. This is like a how-to, so I tell you how to. I pat myself on the back a little bit for that because, most people just, they don't really deliver the goods of what they say. But I do. So now I'm going to get right to it. No point in, I could stay here and be charming, but I'm going to get into this thing about beating the system and what I'm talking about. So, first thing we need to know is there are how many people in the world, kinds of people? There are two. One and two. Now, what would that be? Boys and girls? No. The alive and the dead? Well, not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about there's people in the underground economy, and there's people that are on the above board economy. All those people that are out there, and everybody knows their business, and they have a big house, and they have, it's like they have beautiful Malamutes running around, and Malamutes, I don't know, but they have these big show dogs, and maybe spotlights on it, and they think they're important, because they've done some dumb job their whole lives. It instills in them some semblance of importance. They care a lot how their neighbors feel and their neighbors' opinions. So these are, the people that are currying favor with their neighbors. This is an important thing for them. It's their source of self-esteem, so we never, we don't want to mess any of that up. Let them think they're important and they've done something. They've done nothing except, done some dumb job like we all do, more or less. But it gives them a big feeling of importance, so we don't want to disturb that. They can go into shock, have a heart attack right on the spot and die. We wouldn't want that for these good folk. These are the good folk now. But then there are those shady characters, those miscreant types that are in the underground economy. Now, that underground economy is where it's like the cash economy, where you're going and you're not paying any taxes, and of course you're not building anything up for Social Security or Medicare, but you're getting all cash, and a lot of people like that. And a lot of people, especially nowadays, this is being filmed in 2019, toward the end of the year. We got all of this nonsense going on in Washington with all of these sickening, disgusting people on both sides, all over the place. These people make you want to lose your lunch, all of them. They're nauseating. So, I think the hatred of our government is at an all-time high, and that's saying a lot. So there's a lot of people that really like the idea of stiffing the government, not paying them any taxes. Of course, it's better for them too, but, it really does give them a lot of satisfaction to, stiff the government. So there's that. Now, when somebody's working in the cash economy, they don't have to make as much as somebody else that's in the, let's say, the credit economy, which is one way of putting it. you could make $50,000 a year in the underground economy, and that's going to be about equivalent to $65,000, I'm guessing, in the regular economy, where they're taking, all that money out of your check every week or every month. So you don't have to make as much. And just a quick word about the places that, do this. The people, first of all, let me backtrack. The people that get involved in this are generally people who want to not pay taxes, people that hate the government, or people that kind of get thrown into that because, they went for the ivory tower jobs, or they had the ivory tower jobs, but we're now in this, what they call a gig economy. You go from gig to gig. And, a lot of places are throwing people out that have been there a while so they don't have to pay pensions and all that. So there's people that just get thrown into this because there's nothing else for them. So they end up in the underground economy. And then they learn to like it. The places that do this aren't places like McDonald's or 7-Eleven, of course. They're mom and pop things, they're independents, people like that. And they basically hate the economy or the government too, so they like to, screw the government and save money on their taxes because there's tax benefits to them. So everybody's benefiting there. You're supposed to pay taxes on your income though, so that's an illegal, bad thing to do, and I'm telling you, don't do that. You'll be a bad person if you do, and the government doesn't look on it like very kindly. And so you want to remember what I'm doing here is I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything. I mean, I don't really care if you're in a feather bed or you jump off a cliff right now. I mean, to me, what difference does it make? I care about me and mine, and if you want to, go rob banks, that's your business. I mean, don't do it, I would say, and don't do this. But what I'm saying is, I'm not your keeper. I'm what I consider myself to be as a reporter. I'm just a reporter that needs to bring you valuable information. I mean, when they had the Ebola breakout, people needed information. They weren't saying go get the Ebola, contract it, but we need to let people know. And that's what I'm doing with this thing right here with the underground economy. I'm not telling anybody to do it. I'm saying I'm just being a reporter and saying this is what's going on with maybe 15-20% of the entire country. So it's something to reckon with. I mean, and I think with the hatred of the government, I think it's only going to get bigger and bigger. I wish I could buy stock in it because it's going to grow and grow and grow. Because I don't know what's going on with this government, but people want to throw up with this government now. And so the idea of stiffing the government and working off the books behind the scenes is increasingly more popular with each day that goes by. But I'll get off of that editorial and I'll get back into this economy. Now, I'm going to give you an example of somebody I knew. This was a cousin of mine. It doesn't matter now because, unfortunately, he's deceased. But for 20 years, he worked in the construction industry, and he never paid one penny of taxes, as far as I know. Now, had he lived, it would have been a problem, perhaps, if he needed, Social Security and Medicare. There are alternatives to that. One thing, or a lot of people do that are doing their own thing, is, let's see there. People that are doing their own thing is they do IRAs and KIOs and, those things. So they set up their own retirement funds. But even if you're a little bit smarter than that, what you can do is, if you're a little bit good with numbers, you can figure out, the Social Security is they have published numbers and facts and figures, you can figure out what the minimum would be for you to qualify at a later date for Social Security and Medicare. And just put in the minimum amount to qualify. And then do your own IRAs and KIOs and cash in a shoebox. And then you have the best of both worlds. That's what some of these people tell me. I wouldn't do it, but that's what they do. So they're really playing it both ways. They're getting enough to be on the government's payroll when they get older, but they're still siphoning off the majority of it. They don't, go real big with the government, but there are numbers, and you can figure them out or have somebody figure them out for you, what you need to qualify at a minimum. And then you just put that in, and now you in there like Clover, like Daisy Clover. I think there was a movie. So now that's covering some of the basics there. I want to tell this to you. Don't turn this off. You think, oh, I know about the underground economy. That's real big news. No, I hear you, but what I'm talking about is a whole panoply, that's the word again, and a confluence of different things coming together like rivers come together. That's a confluence. And there's a whole bunch of things that can be involved with this thing here. So let me start mentioning a few of them. Now, where do I want to go first? Okay. You ever notice these people, they come in from a different country, and then maybe a couple months later, they're all driving Mercedes and BMWs, and everybody's going, oh, gee, oh, because they're driving these cars. I guess they're all getting their rocks off on this. So, but they have these cars, and they're getting this money, and where's it come from? Well, they're playing the government like slot machines. Because they got this underground economy job that's on what you might call the down low. We've all heard of the down low. They have this job on the down low, and then they go to the government and say, well, I have 25 kids, and they all need, welfare, and they need food stamps, and they need Medicaid or Medicare. Well, Medicaid, I think. And the welfare is something, I think it's TANF, TAMP, initials for something. But, so they get, they're getting their own job money, and then they're getting the government. And, there's tons of government programs out there. I'm not an expert on that, but, go down there, and there's tons of people that want to help you, and they want to give the government's money away, because that's, that makes them good people, and they can pat themselves on the back. So anytime somebody wants to give you money and pat themselves on the back, I say let them. But don't do anything illegal now. I'm just telling you what these, jokers do. They're bad jokers, but this is what they do. So they play in that thing like a slot machine. Now, they do something else. Let me tell you, so you're not going to be able to get any of these benefits if you're one of these, like I would say, above grounders. If you have, a money trail in the bank with savings and, checking accounts, and if you own property, it's in your own name, you try anything, and, they're going to just laugh at you. Or the month before you go out, pull $100,000 out, and then you go in and say, oh, I'm broke, can you help me? They're going to say, there's the door right there, sucker, So what you have to do, be reasonably bright about this, is you create a trail of the last, let's say, 10 years of no money in the bank. And then the government looks at that, and they can verify you got no money, you got no honey. And then all of a sudden, they're rolling in. They roll out the trucks, and they just shoveling money and goods and medicine to you, and you're there and you're just saying, well, thank you, son, I appreciate it. So that's the way you do it, if you're going to do it, which is horrible. But it's the same with taxes. Now, if you off the books, generally, I think your welfare money and your food stamps and all of that jazz is not going to be taxable. So you're not going to have any current taxes, but a lot of people have back taxes. They're, back tax bills. You see them on TV. I'm not saying these are real people, but whatever. They dramatize it. They say, oh, I owe the government $50,000. I owe the government $100,000. I only paid them 12 cents. Now, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but they'll say, like, I owed them $60,000. I only paid $2,000. So, the implication is, ain't I a smart one, and ain't you a dumb cluck? And the thing is, maybe they are, because if you have the back taxes are like student loans. They don't go away in a bankruptcy. They stick to you. It's like child payment, or child support. Child support, taxes, those things, student loans, they don't go anywhere. They stay with you like a loyal dog. They're right at your heels. They never let you go. They're in love with you. So, but if you have, you're showing this no money thing, now you can go to that and take that tax bill, which is on top of your head. And if you owe, $100,000, you might walk out of it for $5,000. So you just saved $95,000 there by being on the down low, because you know what you're doing, you have a plan, and you're working your plan. So now that's another benefit that you could derive from it. What's another one? Well, we could look at credit cards. Now, this is no, big, brainstorm or big shock. You can work credit cards like slot machines too. You get all those offers in the mail. You go all over. You get the credit. You do things like you pay early and you make double payments, and you find out the guy's birthday at the loan company, and you send him a little cupcake and a little singing telegram saying, "He's a jolly good fellow," and then he has a tear in his eye, and he's eating the cupcake, and he says, "I think I'll raise the credit limit on this sucker here. They're such a good person." So you're doing all the right things, and you're getting all your credit cards raised. And then at one point you just go, well, bad things have happened I didn't foresee. So I'm going to have to just, bang, go BK on you. All your money I owe you is just going to have to go bye-bye. A lot of people do that. Miscreants. Don't be a miscreant. Or a miscreant. But, as I said before, so with the credit cards, so many people were doing it. They had a reform where they raised the intervals between BKs from 5 to 8 years. And we're talking about the Chapter 7, which eradicates all of that kind of debt. Basically, credit cards and medical bills. Your taxes and your student loans and your child support, they all stay in place. You're still not paying them most likely, but they stay in place anyway. They're hoping that you're going to hit the jackpot someday, and then they can attach these things to you and get their dough, because they know basically you're a deadbeat and there's not a chance in hell they're ever going to get it unless, you're struck by lightning, or you win the lotto, or, you marry Miss, Janie Do-Right, and she's a movie star. Now they have a chance, but barring the very shocking, they're probably not going to get paid. And then when they look at your face, they know for sure. So that's the thing with the credit cards there. Now, there's another way to go with the credit cards. You don't necessarily have to go with the BK. You can do the same thing there as with the taxes. You can work those down and pay like 10 cents on the dollar. And instead of, putting yourself behind the BK 8 ball, which means you're going to wait 8 years, you just pay these down, and then you reestablish yourself, put the balances back up, and then, boom, you default on that. But now, because you're showing no assets, you're going to be back in that position where you can maybe give them 10 cents on the dollar. So you can go play that like an accordion. I'm paying the cards down without the BK, or you can just go with a straight BK every 8 years. Now, this is horrible stuff. When I see it and I hear about it, it makes me sad and makes me sick. I have to take some Rolaids and, some aspirin. This is bad stuff. Don't do it. You're not going to get into heaven if you're doing this stuff. God's going to look at you and he's going to laugh. He's going to say, hey, you, let me give you a cup of ice water. You're going to need it, boy. That's what's going to happen to you. So don't do it. Don't do any evil. Be a nice person. I always say that. That's what I live by. Be a nice person. And I think I've lived up to that and then some. But I don't want to keep talking about myself. I'm shy. I hate to blow my own horn or anything else. So I'm going to cut that off right here. But, do good. Now, is there anything else of a bigger nature that you can do with these, with your credit situation and when you're in the cash underground, basically? Well, yeah, the law, you can, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, I think it's in the intro, I did have a lawsuit where I sued people. Had it gone, and this is one example, had it gone to court and we had, adjudicated the suit, I would have been laughed out of the court. There were no grounds, no nothing. But the people came to me beforehand and they offered me 50%. And I said, well, I'm a little bit like, that guy in It's a Wonderful Life. Remember that? No, not Jimmy Stewart. I'm like Mr. Potter a little bit. Because, I'm no longer young and I learn the ways of the world. So normally I would say, well, now you get out of here with your half offer. But because I like you and you look pretty good to me, I'm going to only take that 50% and we'll all just go away happy with that. So that's what I did there. I'm going to give you a little preview of something coming up here. And now this is a real barn burner. This is another lawsuit that I did. And I sued Jeffrey, Mr. Importance, Bezos. Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon. I think he's worth like $150 billion. He's the richest man in this here world. I think he's the richest man on the whole string of planets. Mars and Venus and Mercury. He's the richest man on all of those, too. I mean, he's the richest in the universe. And so everybody was telling me, Chris, you're kind of a knucklehead, but you don't want to sue the richest man in the world. And I said, you'd have to be an ignorant moron and a nut, just a nut. And I said, well, why shouldn't I sue him then, So I sued Jeffrey, and I'm going to tell you in the next tape how that came out. Suing the richest man in the world. but you can just take a little hint and maybe a little guess. Came out pretty good. So that's another one coming up, but I digress. When it comes to lawsuits and you have no money and no assets showing, and like I say, if you got a home and it's in your mother or your brother's name, so that's all copacetic. Hopefully you don't have a bad brother like Cain and Abel. Of course, that was, whatever. So now you're in this lawsuit thing, and you can sue anybody in the world, and you're never going to be countersued because they have nothing that they can come after that's showing for you. A lot of people call that, they say, well, you're judgment proof. I've heard that said. No, they can get a judgment against you, but what they won't do is be able to collect. So you're really collection proof. So you can run havoc with your lawsuits if you find places and reasons to justify this. Sometimes you might want to do a little research if you got a little something upstairs and know where the pickings might be a little bit on the plump side. But that's getting a little bit sophisticated, and if you're not, a real bright boy, I don't want to get in too technical a world for you. I just want to keep it simple. Not that you're simple. I know you're very bright, but, the guy standing next to you might not be so bright, so I just don't want to lose him. But I know you're practically a genius, I know, but it's that other guy that's keeping us all down here. So, on the lawsuits now, let's say that there's a bunch of people you owe money to. They're not new because they would run a credit report on you, but they're people that you've done business with in the past, and maybe you have 5 of them, and, you owe them all $20,000. Well, boom, you stiff all of them. They have no recourse except to blow your brains out, which could happen, but then again, that could happen with lots of things. That woman you're seeing on the side there who's married to that, cop. Well, he might blow your brains out too. I mean, anything can happen in this world, so there's always that danger. But, so on these lawsuits now, if you know the law, you can and have these people in place. You could stiff all of these people. That's a bad thing, and I'm not saying do it. I'm just saying for the sake of argument, that's what some people do. They're not going to be sued. You're not going to be countersued. One of the reasons you don't sue somebody is a lot of times they turn around and countersue you. This is what I've done. When I've been sued, I just immediately turn around and countersue for twice as much. So they're always going to be paying a penalty. But that's another story. I mean, I don't want to keep going on that. But so there's the lawsuits thing there. So now all of these things become possible that I was just talking about, like the government hitting them and taxes and credit cards and law and lawsuits. All of these things work because you're showing no dough and no house in your name. If you're showing dough and you want to be, a captain of industry and, have everybody blowing horns for you, that's fine, but you're not going to be able to do any of these things. And there's a lot of other things involved with all of this, too. I mean, if you're living like this and doing these things, there's something known as a black market. I don't know too much about it, but, instead of going to Nordstrom's and paying, $5,000 for a little couch thing like a Bonaparte settee, you can get that for maybe $1,000 somewhere else, so you're only paying 20% of it. That's what happens in the black market. So that's just, another thing you can do. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. And like I say, I can't cover all the aspects of it. That would be impossible. But this is the basics of when people say, or I say beating the system, this is what the people that are beating the system are doing. Not everybody does it. It's like my cousin. He did this for 20 years. I think that was just about, getting the cash, and it was good for him and it was good for his employers. But I don't think he was hitting these other things. Some people do and some people don't, but they do open up to people that have, one of those natures which makes them a little bit greedy, and they keep going for more and more and more. So, but the interesting thing is, I'm looking at this from a reporter's standpoint. You can live your whole life basically off the grid and off the tracks. And I'm not saying that for any... Now, a lot of these people, they go off the grid because they think Armageddon's coming or something like that. None of that, but I'm just saying you can live off the grid financially and do quite well, and surprisingly well. I mean, I've known people that have done this, not my cousin, because he was always short of cash for a certain reason I won't go into, but I've known people, call them what you will, but I mean, they have a stack of cash enough to choke 5 elephants. I mean, they just got a lot of money. And they, because maybe they're 50 years old and they never paid a dime in taxes. Maybe they've been plucking the government clean and doing other things, and doing these credit card things like yo-yos up and down. And so, they kind of play it fast and loose, but they're kind of fast, so you don't catch them. And so that's the underground economy. That's what I'm talking about. That's how people are basically beating the system. And as I say, almost all of that is about money, of course. But there is one other aspect to it. And it's really true. They hate this government, right and left. And so they get a chance to screw the government. And that is a real topping on the ice cream sundae. That's the cherry on top. What else do I want to say? Almost any job is amenable to this. You're in computers, lawyers have their own office, they can take cash and do medical profession. If you're in the hospital, that's one thing, but if you have a private practice in an office, they do whatever they want money-wise. Any job. I was thinking about policemen, because that's kind of structured and rigid, but no, the policeman can just, you can get out of the police force and become a private detective. Now he's got his own office, and whatever happens there, happens there. Nobody knows but him. So it's really any job in the world can be in this underground economy. And this underground economy that I'm telling you about is a big springboard for people. They start out in it, and then they get their own business out of it. And now they're business owners, but, they're probably going to be in something that's dealing in cash. So they say how much cash comes in. They're going to be doing the expenses. So, every receipt they find blowing down the street, they just pick up and put in their pocket. I think we've all heard of that. And so this underground economy does have a lot of people, let's say, graduating into their own businesses, to which they now control. Oh, Lord, too long. But, they're now controlling that, and they're in charge of that, and I guess they're still stiffing the government and putting dough in their pocket and laughing all the way and thumbing their nose at the government because, hey, If I went out here right now and you said I'll give you $100 to find 5 people that like the government, I'd just say keep your money. I'm gonna lose on that bet. Everybody hates their guts, one way or the other. So I don't know. But that's the underground economy. Those are the basics. I don't suggest doing anything like that. Stay away from it. Be a good person. Love your neighbor. Don't cheat the government. They're such a wonderful body. You know, they're doing all those wonderful things for people, and they're also mature, and they're setting such good moral and character examples for us all, like they are now back in Washington. You wouldn't want to stiff people like that, would you? And, you know, with this, there's always a chance of being caught on doing anything, of course, you know, and some of the people, you know, they might get caught on that, although when you're dealing with cash and you're paying somebody in cash, it is, after all, cash. And it's very hard when you're dealing with cash to really nab somebody unless you're going to set up like a sting operation and nab them, because there's no paperwork, there's no trail of evidence, unless they're going to, you know, get the FBI involved in wiretaps and, you know, photography and all of that. One guy giving cash to another is a very tough thing to prove, and that's the nature of cash. And, you know, it's hard for me to believe that they're going to get some construction workers or some plumbers and set up a sting to bust them, because what they do is they generally want to, you know, bust some billionaire, so the penalties are going to be in the millions. Busting some guy that lives down the street who's, you know, a plumber or a framer for construction, or he's, you know, he fixes computers and makes 30 or 40 grand a year. I don't see them setting up a big sting and, you know, sending other undercover agents in there and getting it. Now, it could happen, but generally they do all of that where they're going to get a big payoff. So they go after, you know, the big boys with the billions. And that's why you got millions, probably tens of millions of people just paid off in cash. And cash is cash. That's it. It just, you know, it was here a second ago and now it's gone. I didn't do anything wrong. What are you talking about? It's very hard to really nail people on that. It can be done, but they're going to put in big resources on that. So if that 1 in 100, I'm guessing, is going to get caught, I mean, those are horrible odds. I mean, 1 in 100. You know, the other 99 are probably going to go and just go on with their lives. But, you know, you're taking that chance. You're going to be that 1 in 100. They're going to make an example on, and they're going to set up, you know, 15 agents, and they're going to have helicopters so they can, you know, nail you for that $500 a week you're getting under the table. So that's a real risk, you know. So you need to think about all those things. Anything can be caught, but, you know, I've seen a lot of things when I was in business. People give bribes. You know, if you're doing business with them, they give you a little kickback. If they're giving you things, you know, like tangible things, you know, maybe that's something you can prove. But when they hand you some cash, unless you know, like you got, like I say, agents there, and then how are you going to prove what the cash is? You say, yeah, well, last week I lent him $100 and he's paying me back $100. What's your problem? So not only do you have to film the cash transfer, but you got to prove somehow that what the intent is. And good luck with that. I mean, they do that, like, again, they're going to do that and spend tens of thousands of dollars on going after a big boy. But you and your little thing, whatever your little thing is, and I'm sorry to hear about your little thing, but your little thing there is anything can happen, but I think a lot of people have figured out by now, as long as you're dealing in cash, well, they say at least 15% of the nation, not some part of it, 15, maybe 20%. And with the hatred of the government now, that is just going to go up. So I don't think I blabbed a lot on this one. And this is coming up way too long, but I had to do it. I felt compelled. I don't want to shortchange you on anything. But that's it. Look for me in the other tapes. I'm going to be talking about my lawsuit with Jeffrey Bezos. But this is the basics of how to beat the system, how to be in the underground economy, but it's more than just that, as I already showed you. And as I say, don't do it. You know, I mean, this is a bad thing. You might go to hell. So you might go to jail. I mean, it can happen. I mean, that's the theory I hear. So I won't say any more. But that's all I got to say on that one there. And I'm saying bye-bye for now. It's been pleasant to spend time with you, as it always is. You're looking good as good can be. And I'm going to see you on the next tape. Bye-bye.